Yo, what's up? This is Renz. Just a chill day. And seeing who want to come on here and have any conversations about anything. Um, don't really have a subject matter in mind. I know I get a lot of people. Here's the subject matter. I really want to understand. I guess I never understand. Why is it that people come to my channel? You don't agree with my religious, well, it's not a religious belief, my spiritual beliefs. Yeah, I break down other religions because my primary audience is not people who are in their religions. If you're in your religions, you should stay there. And I always find it interesting how people want to come to my channels, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. They want to try to debate me or correct me. I know that your books tell you to go out and save the world and preach to the world, but I've been preached to too much. I grew up in a church. I grew up in a Christian family. And if I walked away from it during that process, the process took me from age 9 till about 21 when I walked away from Christianity. So I did my time. And then in my own studies, I realized that it's not for me. And that is not my truth, nor, in my opinion, and in my studies, any truth whatsoever. If you're fine with your religion, you should have enough humility to just stay in your religion and leave people alone. I don't understand that. If I've already said I'm not interested in your religion, why do you keep talking to me? Why do you keep... Now, granted, some of y'all give me some good statements that allow me to make videos about things I haven't thought about in a while, or things that I'm not currently studying right now. So you bring back to memory a lot of good stuff. I don't have my reading glasses on, so it's going to be hard. How you doing? Baby girl 13. Because I will mess that other part up. No, I don't want to mess that up. But yeah, it's like... I forgot what I was saying. See what you did, baby girl? But for real, if a person is taking the time to study, they've read your books, they've studied your books. First studied your book while I was believing. And like most people, oh, this is your first time? Hopefully not your last. But if I studied your books, the Bible, the Torah, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao, the Sumerian story, Zoroastrianism, African ancestry, I'm good. And most people who are like me are good. And once you realize we're good, why do you keep coming back? I'm just curious. Was that Sylvia? Do you still believe? Believe what? And most of the time when you're in America and somebody says, do you still believe? Which this is changing because America is finding itself in a religious walking away. And that walking away is occurring not only in Christianity, but also in Islam and Judaism. Now, there are people who are joining those religions, but there's more people walking away nowadays than people who are staying. Thank you. Speaking about yourself. See, as far as myself, right, belief doesn't give you any knowledge. Do I still believe? I don't believe in Christianity. I don't believe in Islam. I don't believe in Buddhism or Hinduism or any of those traditional religions. Zoroastrianism almost got me. I almost was walking with the Zoroastrians. Then I found out that you got to be born into Zoroastrian to be a Zoroastrian, which is like, okay, now you're making this man-made. Like, that's why there's only like 300,000 of them, and they're not growing, because it's only going to grow by birth rates. The thing about it is, I can't believe in none of those books. I find so many contradictions in them. I find so many lies, basically. I find so many borrowed stories from other people, other religions. So I don't believe in what people want to force you to believe in. And they get mad. They get mad when I don't believe in it. And then they get mad at a person like me, because if you come to me with some basic Bible verses, I will break those things down. If you come to me with some basic stories, I will break those things down. I will show you where they came from, or I will show you like what was in play during the culture or something like that. Is that a fat blunt? No, this is a cigar. I own a cigar lounge. And this is the cigar, my cigar. It's called the My Nicaraguan 1111. I said I likes my Nicaraguans one time on a video for my cigar lounge, and it just stuck, and people now that's how they refer to me, when they come in and is that a Nicaraguan? So when I made a stick, I called it the My Nicaraguan 1111. Beginning of a new journey. So, do I believe in a creator? Yes, I do believe that the universe is created through an intelligent mind, and it's a living mind, right? So, I'm listening, sir. But let my neighbor's friend drive away. But I believe that the universe is created by a living mind, and that living mind created the universe through mental manifestation, and that mental manifestation transmuted itself into different varying degrees of life. We have life on the astral plane, the spiritual plane, the mental plane, and the physical plane, and the atomic plane. So just as life exists on the atomic plane, atoms have life. Molecules, electrons, neutrons, protons, dark matter, it's all life. It's just at such a vibration that we can't see it. It's so small we can't see it. And that plants have life, trees have life, and they vibrate differently, and they have a different consciousness. Their consciousness is not as complex as ours, but yet still have a consciousness. We are a more complex being, different from something like an earthworm, and we are made in the likeness of the creator. We can create. If you contemplate, think of something. Now, can we create? Can we transmute matter from one form to another? That's the old alchemist misteaching of transmuting metal into gold, like lead into gold. But it is for us, that understanding of the creator is being able to transmute thought from thought, negative thought to positive thought, aggression to love, slavery to freedom, abuse, again, to care. So it is for us to transmute our mental state so that we rise higher in our consciousness. But the alchemists hid their knowledge by convincing the world that what they were really doing was trying to transmute lead into gold. And the world didn't understand that what they was actually talking about was mental transmutation. And we go through the process of going through mental transmutation is understanding all 7 laws of the universe. And there are minor laws within each law, but being able to understand cause and effect, to understand the law of polarity, the law of vibration, the law of correspondence, as above, so below, and the law of gender, and the law of rhythm. Being able to utilize those laws in order to transmute our mental and our emotional states into a higher plane of existence, so that when we decide not to come back and live this life again or any life again, we go to a higher plane of existence. We go to, like, the fourth in the book, the Law of One. Ra is talking about the fact that after this third dimensional plane, there is the fourth dimensional plane, and that is when you understand how love works, true love, how not only the love of your spouse or your family members and other humans, but the love of the earth, the love of plants, the love of animals, the love of air, the love of everything. To discover that kind of love and to work within the balance of it. It doesn't mean we don't eat the plants, or I don't eat animals, but it doesn't mean you don't eat the animals, but it means that like the Native Americans didn't abuse the animals to the point where they were overconsumption like we have today in our world, the overconsumption of animals, which is creating so much methane in the air through the agricultural industry, that is the true cause of our greenhouse effects, which shows us that we don't have a love of the earth, right? But understanding that love and that balance that is struck between all creatures, all things that exist. How you doing? All things that exist on this third dimensional plane. That's where your third eye comes into play. Your third eye is blocked by not understanding how everything is connected. So I don't want to miss any statements. Is that an ankh around your neck? Yes, it is. It is an ankh. And I wear the ankh not because I'm so engrossed with Egyptian spirituality, but when I study things, I go back to the oldest forms of things that we have. And right now, our understanding of the Egyptian spirituality, the Sumerian spirituality, those are the understandings that I lean towards because they are more rooted in understanding universal law. You see, the Kabbalion is a great book if you haven't read it, but the Kabbalion talks about how we come to understand ourselves through understanding nature, and that we ascend in spirituality by understanding the laws of nature. The ankh representing everlasting life. It's never been a symbol of death. It has multiple understandings. This top part is the womb of a woman, while this part is the penis of a man. And these two prongs out can be either the ovaries or the balls of a dude. And I have a stone in the middle representing the creation through the balance of masculine and feminine energy. Also, when you get into Tantra, you understand that this symbol also represented the sharing of heart energy. And to take your sexual energy, rise up to your heart, and then go out from both of you and around the top of both of you to re-enter you, so that you then are sharing your love. Doing heart hold meditation is very special. You don't do it with everybody. So this has multiple representations. Manly P. Hall, hold on. Yeah, Laws of Maya, exactly. Manly P. Hall, any thoughts on his books? I think Manly P. Hall was brilliant. His stuff get clouded because in the 1930s and then again in the 1950s, you had the anti-Masonic Party. And the anti-Masonic Party, how you doing? Their bid for president was done so by making it seem like the Masons were violators of everything that was wrong in a person's life. So utilizing that, and the Masons didn't fight back by correcting them, they were able to convince the world that the Masons were all evil. Now, every organization has evil people in it. Every church, every synagogue, every mosque, the NAACP, United States Congress, like every organization, Greenpeace has evil people in it. Everybody does. You can't help that. You won't ever be able to stop that. But you have to understand what is the purpose and the mission of the organization. And yes, that can be lost over time if the organization is swayed to the left or to the right. But Manly P. Hall had a lot of great wisdom, a lot of great understanding. And just like anybody, I'm going to take from him what I think is valid, and I'm going to discard the rest. So, exactly, we try every religion except our own ancestral spirituality. We do. And that's conditioning. I was born into a Christian family. My grandmother was very Christian, but her mind was open enough that by the time I was 12, she told me I didn't have to go to church anymore. She told me I didn't have to, because of my questioning of all the pastors. From 9 to 12, I started questioning pastors. I was like, okay, you said it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven, and you held up a sewing needle, and you said that y'all need to stop trying to be rich and just wait for heaven afterwards. And I was like, I grew up without food. So I was like, to hell with that. I'm not going to be poor. I'm going to strive to have finances. So, and plus the book told you, Ecclesiastes says, do many business because you know which one, you do not know which one will succeed. It tells you to count the cost. And if you really read the Bible, it's a sin to be poor. Like, it literally is a sin to be poor. You're not supposed to be poor. So I wasn't going for that. So because I was questioning all these pastors, we kept going from church to church to church in Marietta, Georgia. And my family kept being expelled from those churches. They called me Satan, the devil, Lucifer. They called me all kind of names because I questioned their book. And I questioned the validity of it. So by the time we was 12, my grandmother didn't make me go to church anymore. Now my mom, my dad, my uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody was Christian. Hell, I only knew one other guy in Marietta at that time frame who wasn't. And he was called everything under the book too. Actually, as adults, that's one thing that he and I talked about. But hey, from Florida, hey, Miss Whitney. So because I questioned everything, she released me, but she asked me to study the Bible. So from 12 to about 15, I read the Bible every day. And then, I met the woman that would become, I've been married a couple times, and I met the woman who became my first wife, mother of my children. I was 15, ninth grade. She went to church, so I went to church, right? And all my friends went to church, so I was back in the church from 15 to until 18. But even sitting there in church, hey, from Maryland, Trinidad and Tobago. Hold on, sorry about that. So, thank you, Judy. I appreciate that. Hey, Kiki's come to my lounge. If you're ever in that Atlanta area, come hang out at the lounge with me. Smoking Phoenix Cigar Lounge. But the thing about it is, I would sit in church and I would listen to the pastors. And I would see them constantly take scriptures out of context. And I would constantly see them misinterpreting things. And then I saw that they didn't understand it. Because I was a kid I lived from like 12, well, actually 9, I lived in the library. Because we didn't have the internet. So I had to use those references in the libraries in order to study and understand things. So when they were teaching and they didn't have the cultural context, it bothered me. So therefore, when I was 18 and I left, I went to the Marine Corps. One of the kickers in the Marine Corps, Desert Storm was getting ready to pop off. And the pastor at the church said, God loves America and he hates the Iraqis because they're Muslim. And that threw me off. So I began to study Islam. I studied Islam for a good year. Thank you, Judy. And then after a year of that, I realized that wasn't going to work. And then I studied Buddhism and the Vedics. And I studied Hinduism. Then I studied Zoroastrianism. But I still had a little bit of Christianity that was unsolved for me because my wife was Christian at the time. So with her being that, I went to the Vatican. I went to Israel. And then I went to Egypt. And I went to Mecca. I went to all the different sites. I needed to see these things for myself. And along that journey, I met some really, really great archaeologists and scholars. And they taught me how to get information from the Library of Congress. They taught me how to get information from these different schools like Yale and Princeton to get get PhD papers and read those so I can get a really good grasp and understanding of all these different religions. And I read the ones that didn't have that weren't sworn. Like if you go to a seminary school, you have to be sworn to uphold the doctrine no matter what you find out. And I didn't like that because then everything you write is going to be swayed. So I just read from people who were unbiased and they were just doing the study. And then I met this man named John Anthony West when I was in Egypt. Actually, I was referred to him by another person that I met in Israel. And when I met John Anthony West, he really taught me Egyptian history. Like, this is before he started getting in trouble for saying that the Sphinx was at least 26,000 years old and that the pyramids were not tombs for the pharaohs. And his whole thing was giving Egypt back its history. when I met him, that changed everything. Yeah, it changed the game. He taught me the Sumerian story, introduced me to Enki and Enlil, and you know, he introduced me to that by introducing me to Zechariah-Sitchin, to his work, not to the man personally, but to his work. And so when I started reading their works, I was just like, ugh. And then I started reading Sheikh Atadrop. I probably said the name wrong. The ISIS papers, because he encouraged me to read African history and African religion. And so I started studying Ifa and Voodoo and Comblien and, all these other different religions that were more native to people who didn't convert over to something because they were conquered. And that was a big thing for me, to realize that most of the people who believe in a religion today, if you go back in history, you'll find that at some point their ancestors were conquered. Even white people, your ancestors were conquered by the Roman government, which forced you into the belief of Christianity. And for generation after generation, that's what you believe, because that's what your grandparents and your parents told you to believe. You were born into it. So I decided to think for myself. So what are the pyramids meant for, if not tombs? Would love to know. Okay, so I've been able to get some passports on a couple of my visits to Egypt. Passports to go into the Great Pyramids and into the Sphinx. Here's the thing. When you go into the Great Pyramids, the pathways are too damn narrow to carry any kind of sarcophagus. They're too narrow for a bunch of people to go through. There's no place for a tomb. There's no tombs in there. There's no inscriptions. When you go to Karnak and you go to the temples, or you go to the smaller pyramids that were definitely built later, and you look at the tombs, there are meta-netures everywhere. All over the place there are meta-netures. And because there are meta-netures, but you don't have that in the Great Pyramids. So it invalidates that they were tombs, right? Then when you look at what is that man named? Tesla. What Tesla did, Tesla studied the Egyptian pyramids, and then he went to Niagara Falls and he built his tower. And he framed it in the same way that the insides of the pyramids are made, with an underwater aquifer, with a river next to it, because the Nile River has shifted 8 miles away from the Great Pyramids over these thousands of years. So anywho, when you look at all of that, what you see is the pyramids at first thing, they represents a power source of free energy. This is one reason why you see the serpent on a lot of the helmets of the pharaohs and the priests. It allowed them to attract that energy. They also, based on the meta-natures, indicate that they were able to receive transmissions from the gods as they looked at them. Whether or not this is the Anunnaki, or because Thoth and Ra and all of them could have just been Anunnakis, as the Sumerians talk about. Because in the Sumerian story, they say the Anunnakis were down there in Egypt. But so they represent that. And when you can't climb a mountain to talk to the gods, so if you think about it, all these people went to the mountain. Moses went to a mountain to talk to God. Everybody went to a mountain to talk to God. In Egypt, you don't have mountains. So you build one called a pyramid. And they understood that it connects to the stars. So they were also for communicating with the gods, as well as healing chambers. There's a guy, I forgot where he's at. He built something. He built this contraption that is supposed to be a healing vortex machine. And it has similarities to the pyramids. So the pyramids are definitely not tombs. But in time, I think we'll discover more and more that they were power sources at minimum. This is why J.P. Morgan and the Rothschilds took away Tesla's funding, so that he couldn't give out free energy. They wanted to charge for it. So, but that's what I think they are. I miss them. Those are narrow pathways built and placed inside. No, those pathways are the original build. You can't change anything with the pyramids. You can't. It's an it's a construction impossibility. Oh, and one other thing about the pyramids. There's no ancient soot in the pyramids. So how did they see? Those tunnels without light, they're dark as shit. I mean, like, you can't see. When they turn off the lights, You put your hand up like this, you can't see in front of your face. It's that dark in there. But there's no ancient soot. But there are hieroglyphics showing them carrying around these big giant ass light bulbs. So they had energy. They had electricity. But no, those things weren't built after. Did your friend mention Serapis, known as the Christian today? We did talk about Serapis. I mean, Serapis was just basically the Hellenization. Okay, so when the Greeks conquered Egypt, what the Greeks had a habit of doing is going around and Hellenizing whoever they conquered, meaning they did a couple of things. One, they enforced their soldiers to marry the women in the areas that they were so that they would have children, and those children, fathers would be the Greeks. So that the child is not going to go against his father. The grandchild is not going to go against his grandfather. So that's one way of keeping a people conquered. Then the second thing that they did was that they would take their gods and they would find a god of your people that's similar enough, and then they would merge the two. So Serapis became a merged god. First, he was a merged god during the Greek era with Horus and Osiris, depending upon what part of Egypt. You gotta understand the Egyptian stories are different depending on where you were and what era you're talking about. So first it was merged that way. Then when the Romans started taking over and Christianity started taking over, they merged Serapis with Jesus in the Roman era, which made him Serapis, which made him the Egyptian Jesus. And this was one way of converting people, by giving them something that they like but different. This is why Catholic means universal, meaning the universal church. We're going to join our belief with everybody else's belief, which is why you have your Christmas trees that has nothing to do with Christianity, why Jesus was born on the 25th, which has nothing to do with Christianity, and it would be an impossibility based on the book. So you have all that. You are correct, and people are passing it to the young, causing great fear. Yeah, and that fear of death. That's the whole reason why people are scared to leave their religion. They want heaven, not really realizing that. As I do like the the Gospel of Thomas, Yeshua says that heaven is at hand. It's inside of you and outside of you. It's all around you. But a veil has been pulled over your eyes so that you can't see it. It says that the priests are like dogs who sit at the trough, and they don't eat, nor do they allow the cattle to eat. They don't want you to know truth because they can't control you if you did. Were there gold and treasure in them that were stolen? It probably was some items, but no one knows. Healing chambers is what I heard. And yeah, there's a resonance energy in the pyramids that you feel grounded to the earth. Now the earth, and Tesla proved this one as well, the earth vibrates, when it's in a healthy state, the earth vibrates at 428. So anywhere, like my yard is healthy, right? So my yard is vibrating at 428 right now. But there's a patch over there that looks barren. Now let's say that it was barren because somebody salted it, right? So that nothing can grow. Then that patch of earth, because it will be unhealthy, would vibrate at it vibrates at 428 at 532. 532 is a healing frequency. So when you're in the pyramids, you feel a frequency. Not to mention it lays on the biggest connection of ley lines on the earth, right? Well, yeah. So it's just a resonance in there that's different. You feel different when you're inside the pyramid. Appreciate your teachings. However, we are so unlearned and so behind the truth. Yeah, of course we are. And we are because man has purposely done that. Even before today religions came about, something I believe some major earthquake, ice age happened. Actually, I believe that the comet that smashed into Russia and created a dust cloud that covered the earth for about 6-7 years and killed all the plants and most of the animals, that man became dumb again. This is why we find Göbekli Tepe, and Göbekli Tepe is older than the Sumerians, is older than the Egyptians, but they had inscriptions that you find in the Egyptian hieroglyphics, Meta Netures. So there was something that happened about 12,000 years ago that changed man's course, and we became dumb, and now we're building back up again. Wasn't the Osiris resurrection story written 2,000 years before Jesus even supposedly walked the earth? I don't know if it's exactly 2,000 years, but it's definitely, I think it might be closer to about 8,000 years. Closer to about 6,000 years before the Jesus story was written. And for those who don't know, Osiris, he was the king. He was the king pharaoh. And his brother Seth was jealous, especially because he had married his... Seth and Osiris and Isis were brothers and sisters. Osiris marries his sister Isis. Seth really wanted to marry her. He was mad because Ra gave her to him. And so he wanted to kill him. He wanted to be the king. So he kills Osiris through trickery. Osiris then is placed in... He's cut up in a bunch of pieces. Isis is so distraught about it that she calls upon Anubis. Anubis helps her to find... And that's... My ring is an Anubis ring. And my cigar poker is Anubis. Finds Anubis. Anubis helps them reconstruct Osiris's body, except for can't find the penis. So that's where she put the obelisk on there. So you see an obelisk in all these graveyards. You see an obelisk at the right in the middle of St. Peter's Basilica, right in the middle of the Vatican. You see an obelisk in D.C. tall, and no other building can be taller than it. It represents Osiris's penis of resurrection. Then she turns into a bird. She hovers over the penis. She becomes pregnant by hovering over it. And then she bursts out Horus, right? His son. So Osiris is resurrected just to have the baby. Then Osiris goes and he becomes the god of the underworld. And for the Egyptian people, the underworld is heaven. It's paradise. The field of reeds. So it's called the underworld, but it's not under. It's not so much a negative place as the Greeks then made it into, because they had Hades as the lord of the underworld. But then Osiris, so if your heart is lighter than a feather of Mayat, then Amet doesn't eat your heart, and you get to go into the field of reeds and live your similar life that you live today. But you're in like the fourth dimensional plane, and you get to live in paradise. So they kind of took that story is similar enough to Jesus' resurrection and the whole going to the Father and all that kind of stuff. And even there's still redemption. Seth later on is redeemed by his father Ra. Ra then recruits Seth to go, because Ra is the light, the sun. He goes down. When he goes down into the underworld, a different underworld, but goes into the underworld, and then it fights all night against Apep. Apep is a demon serpent that wants darkness again. Like in the beginning, there was the Ogdode and there was Apep. Apep wanted darkness and chaos. The Ogdode wanted light and peace and illumination and tranquility. So every night Ra fights, but Apep gets stronger every night. So because Apep gets stronger every night, Ra recruited his son Seth, to help him fight that battle. And then later on he recruits his daughter Bastet to also help fight that battle. So that was the story. Must have been an amazing feeling. It is. And I've been there a few times, and I plan on going back. I've been having this recurring vision that when I go and I touch the pyramids again, that all will be revealed. So I am planning a trip back to Egypt. Don't know when I'm going to go. Got to get a couple business things handled. And now that my children are older, I didn't want to go back to my children who are older so they can have greater understanding. When I was going before, they were small. It was. I appreciate this man, always so willing to patiently share his knowledge. Thank you, Kiki. I appreciate that. But all these teachings, see, this is one thing that most religious people won't do. And then if they don't find that their story, that some older story perfectly mirrors their current story, they dismiss it. Like, you have that story of Osiris, right? But then you have the story of his son Horus. Horus has 12 apostles. He performs miracles. He brings dead people back to life. Horus does all these same things. Horus is there at the judgment. Like at the judgment, before you go into the field of reeds or devoured by Amunet, your Horus, he's like your your lawyer. And he's like, no, did you steal? When you say I have not stolen, no, I haven't stolen. And then he said, no. And then the horse like, yeah, he ain't stolen, but if he did, it's all right. I got him. And he sits there with Anubis and the other judges to decide whether or not you go into the field of reed. So, but he's more of your advocate, more so than Anubis is, or the 12 judges. But you have a judgment. And that judgment is similar. So the idea of having a judgment is something that they've appropriated. You have to look at a bunch of different things to see how they've been merged, because the Hebrew people came so much later than the Egyptians. And then the Hebrew people came out of the Babylonians. And so there's a lot of Babylonian stuff within Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But people don't research it, so they don't know. But if you research it, you find these things out. And the more I found these things out, the more I had to just walk away from the traditional religions. Horus represents the sun in nature, not a real person. And you're right. I'm not saying that any of these people are real. Hell, Osiris ain't real. Osiris, when you on the 25th of December, it happens every night, every day, but on the 25th of December, especially, and this is based on the winter solstice. What the Greeks renamed Orion, that used to be the constellation Hero. Asar. That used to be the constellation Asar. And then where Sirius is, that used to be the womb of Isis. Now it's the Canis Major, is what they call it now, Canis Major. So, but that used to be Isis or Aset. On December 25th, the belt of Orion points directly to the womb of Canis Major, to Sirius, which points directly to the rising of the sun. So it's like a straight line, pretty much a straight line. And it's all to represent that the sun is now moving 1 degree north when it rises and sets, instead of 1 degree south, which it begins to do after the summer solstice. So now we're getting ready to have longer days, so the people felt salvation is coming. We will survive the winter, because winter meant death to them. All these stories become the story of your saviors, no matter what your religion is. That becomes the story of your savior. Where it's all astrological. It's all in the stars. Isn't that the difference in Christianity? Everyone is real according to the Bible, is what's taught. Yeah, now the Bible will tell you that everybody's real, except the Bible is not backed up by actual history. It's not backed up by actual astronomy. It's not backed up by actual archaeology. It's not backed up by geology either. I'll give you an example. And this is one of my favorite examples. According to the Bible, you had 3 magi. Magi, more than likely, right, it's completely based on belief. But there's so much proof out there that it doesn't make sense, that it's invalid. But it also doesn't work. I don't have a map to show you right now, but if you think about it, you got magi in the east. They're in the Iran, Iraq area. They're more than likely Zoroastrians, because that's where magicians come from. The word magic comes from them. These magi are in the east, but yet they followed a star in the east to come find the baby Jesus. But if you're in the east and you follow a star in the east, when you look at a map, you'll see that Jerusalem, Judea, is northwest of Iraq and Iran. So how do you follow a star in the east but go west? You can't. That doesn't make sense, right? Now, when you do get to Jerusalem and you talk to Herod, they say they continue to follow their star in the east to Bethlehem to find baby Yeshua. But Bethlehem is southeast, was more south than east of Jerusalem. So if you're following a star in the east, you go back to Iran, Iraq. You don't go south to Jerusalem. That doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, just does it make any sense? Doesn't make any sense at all. And the people believe that they were real because that's how they were taught. Exactly. So it's things like that. that don't make any sense whatsoever. None. Not even a little bit of sense. A worldwide flood. Although I can use many different examples of why a worldwide flood is an impossibility, especially the one in the Bible. If everything on the planet was underwater to the highest 8 to 18 feet above the highest mountain, the highest mountain at that time frame still would have been Everest, right? We know that at the top of Mount Everest, nothing can live. There's not enough air to breathe, which is why people who climb it have to climb the last third of it with oxygen masks. We know that there's no plant life, that you can't build a fire because there's not enough air to build a fire. So you would freeze to death and you wouldn't be able to breathe. So how in the Sam hell does a boat full of animals and people exist 18 feet higher than Mount Everest? It doesn't happen. How does, if you mixed all the salt water and seawater on the planet together, it would still be mostly salt water, but it would kill every plant on the earth. So how does a dove go out and bring back a branch from an olive tree? It doesn't happen. They can't. It's an impossibility to do that. How does 8 people, well really 6 people go and repopulate the entire planet? None of them came to the Americas, so where did those people come from? None of them went to Africa. Where did those people come from? And I ain't talking about Egypt, Africa. I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa. None of them went there. So how does that happen? It's an impossibility. None of them went to Europe. None of them went to China, to Japan. So none of those things are possible in the time frame for those people to have repopulated the earth so that there were millions of people on the planet. In just a few hundred years, you got millions of people on the planet. It doesn't happen. It's an impossibility. It won't work. So it is purely belief that someone would believe that for people to do this. And the core of that belief is the desire to go to a heaven, go to a paradise after you die. Because the scariest thing for man is death. But if man understood the Hermetic teachings, the teachings of Thoth the Atlantean, the Egyptian teachings of vibration alone, you would no longer fear death. You see, the law of vibration says that everything vibrates, everything moves, nothing is still. That with everything, with every cause, there is an effect, and with every effect, there's a cause. If everything continues to vibrate, then nothing dies. It just transmutes itself into something else. Lion King said, we eat the antelope eat the grass, and we eat the antelope. And then when we die, we become the grass. It's the circle of life. As elementary as that is, it is as true in every situation. Everything continues to vibrate, but transmute its energy from one form to the next. Your consciousness is a vibration. And the reason why we look to elevate our consciousness, the reason why I look to elevate my consciousness, to help people to elevate their consciousness, is so that you don't have to, because I do believe in reincarnation, you don't have to come back to this planet and relive another human life, right? Yes, we are energy, so that you don't have to relive another human life. I disagree with the Buddhists when they say that you may come back and reincarnate as a cow or a blade of grass or something like that. A blade of grass consciousness is not complex enough to hold the complexity of your consciousness. If it did, you would know that you are a blade of grass. You would fear the lawnmower. You would fear the deer, because now you're going to be transmuted into different parts of the deer and then shit later on. So your complexity has to come back into a shell, the human body, that can hold the complexity of your consciousness or soul, whichever one you want to call it. So you have to come back as a human. And you come back as a human because you didn't learn. You didn't go through a process of elevating your consciousness. And even though the Buddhists teach that you got to satisfy your dharma, meaning that you did some messed up stuff and you have to atone for that messed up stuff you did in your previous life. But what about your first life? That first time you came, what dharma are you trying to satisfy? This is what a Buddhist monk couldn't answer this one for me. What dharma are you trying to satisfy? And I've actually multiple Buddhist monks. What dharma are you trying to satisfy if you've never lived on this dimensional plane? You know, after he couldn't answer, I answered it myself. I said, maybe you have some jacked up dharma on the fourth or fifth or sixth dimensional plane of existence. And you were so jacked up that you had to come back to the third and start over. It's like you have to repeat first grade because you didn't learn enough in first grade, or you was in second grade and you was wanting, and so you had to go back and repeat a grade. I know about that. When my grandfather died, I skipped like 3 months of school and had to repeat a bunch of classes. But that would actually work if they thought that way. Right, spirit can't die because nothing can die. Your body doesn't die. It just ceases existing as a body. And it becomes the grass and the dirt and the elements of the earth. Kiki says she don't want to come back. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one way to prevent that, Kiki. The only way to prevent that is to truly come into, whether you want to call it Christ consciousness or the Buddha head, but to open your crown chakra. But most people who say, oh, I'm going to open my crown chakra, I'm going to open my third eye. If you haven't opened your base chakras, which your base chakra represents you on a physical form, you know, if you're still held here by any type of fear, shame, or guilt, then you can't open to the fourth dimensional plane, which is where the heart, which is, if you can't open yourself into understanding true love, real love, you can't go to the fourth dimensional plane. And then understanding true love, you have to be able to not understand the lies that you've told yourself about yourself. Not the lies that other people have told you. Except for the one, well, there are the lies that other people have told you, but you have to accept them. When you do that, and you cannot tell those lies, then you can go to that next dimensional plane, which is in your third eye, by realizing that everything is connected. The entire universe is connected. This is why the law of correspondence comes into play, where as above, so below, as above. Everything that is done in the astral plane is done in the spiritual plane, is done in the matter plane of existence, is done in the atomic plane of existence. Everything is connected, right? In order for you to breathe, things have to happen in the atomic plane for you to breathe. While you're breathing without conscious thought of it, things are happening for you in the spiritual plane. Because this is why the Buddhists and the Hindu, they call it, the breathing in is your prana, the taking in. The breathing out is the release. That's your nirvana. You got to release all these earthly attachments, which open up your crown chakra by releasing all your earthly attachments. The problem is that we like quick service. We want everything handed to us very quickly. We want to be able to just say it, but until you live it, it's not going to happen. I understand that you want to, you're trying, and you should keep trying. But you just have to live it on a daily basis. Make the conscious decision in every thought and every action to live that life, right? So that's how we do it. Yeah, it's a little heavy, and I'm throwing a lot out there. Hold on for a second, y'all. Yes, ma'am. Y'all ready to go? I was just doing a little live. Y'all see? They saw you for a split second. Y'all ready to go?
No, I was just wondering why you didn't answer the phone.
Because I was doing a live. I figured you would have figured that. But I thought you would have texted me, and then I would have responded. I can text. I can't. Are y'all ready to go back? No. What did you need? Did you want something? What was it? They're important, but not as important as you. Come here, baby. Come here. Come, bringeth thyself hither. Bringeth thyself hither.
I'm not getting on that camera.
You don't have to get on the camera. But what was you calling for? It's important to me.
Well, we wanted you to take out the trash.
Oh, you want me to take out the trash?
See, now did you really want me to say that?
Yeah, that's fine. I was being called because I needed to take out the trash. Which goes in concert with what I was saying, though, is that as you open up your consciousness and you understand universal law, the universal law in the household is it's my job to take out the trash. And if there's trash in the house, I best get to taking out that trash.
What's this joke?
Hey, Miss
Here you go,
Morgan.
pal.
See, I'm even having trash hand delivered to me. I'll take
How am
it.
I gonna have recording?
All right, so I'm going to end this in a few minutes because we're going to where are we going? To the carnival. We're going to go to a carnival. You got to enjoy life and you got to go play. But let me see if I can get a couple more things out before. You in trouble? Yep, I'm in a little bit of trouble. Because I said that, no, I actually said before we go to the carnival, I was going to take out the trash. We haven't left yet. So technically, I'm not in trouble. What is deja vu? There are times since I was a kid that I have been there. And I believe that deja vu is you catching up to your future self. Something happened. You dreamed it or you just have a knowing of it. Most of the time, I believe you dreamed it. And then you're just catching up to your future self. Time is an illusion. We view times on the earth revolving around the sun and all of that stuff. If you was on Jupiter, time would be different for you. So we view time in a physical plane. In the spiritual mind, time doesn't exist in the same format. All right? There is no time. So the sons of Mithra used to teach that time is like a circular river, always revolving, and you can pick places in time to visit. I believe deja vu is us just catching up to time. I've gotten pretty good at it, where if I'm experiencing deja vu, I can literally tell you what's going to happen 10, 15 seconds before it does. I'm not sure about what you mean by the drums that constantly play. All right, so every man knows that universal law. Yeah, taking out the trash. And I have some things that we got to take to the basement. So let me go take those things into the basement, take the trash out so I can fulfill my promise to Miss Morgan about going to the carnival. They were going to go without me a different day, but I'm glad that we're going on a day that I can go. So I can show my daughter how to do some stuff that she don't know she's doing.
So good.
I did some dirty water to show how you have to settle yourself down so that you can meditate.
Drink it?
No, I'm not drinking. All right. So I appreciate you guys, and we will try to do more lives. I like this one, out in my front yard with a cigar, not always at work, enjoying some nature, even though we're on a corner lot in the primary entryway into the neighborhood, so we get a lot of cars driving by. But y'all have a great day, and as I always like to say, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Y'all have a great day.